Today, we have another young Indian with us as part of the Voice of the Young series. Hello, everyone. Good to be here again. Today, we have with us Bhavya Pandey. Let's listen to her. Over to you, Bhavya.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for having me. I've heard so much from you about this medium, and I think I'm very fortunate to be able to talk about myself and my journey here so far. I'll just talk briefly about myself. So, I'm currently a master's student at the University of Chicago. I'm pursuing this degree called the Master's in Computational Social Sciences, but my concentration is in economics. So, this is a sort of an interdisciplinary kind of degree, and you can kind of visualize it as the intersection, sort of a Venn diagram between quantitative, social science, and computational skills. And it's a relatively new program, but it's quite interesting, and I've been enjoying it the past year so far. And before I joined the University of Chicago, I was a bachelor student of economics at Daulat Ram College in University of Delhi. So I graduated in 2022. And the same year, I decided to apply for a few master's programs, both in India and the States, and elsewhere across the world as well. And eventually, I decided to go with this program to pursue my studies. And another aspect of my academic journey in economics has been the fact that 3 out of 3 years of my bachelor's degree, 2 was spent, online in
Online, right.
which left me feeling like I barely knew anything tangible, after completing my degree.
Yeah.
As a result, I decided to continue on for my master's right after completing my bachelor's. So that's what my trajectory has been like so far. And I think one of the interesting things about economics as a discipline is that it's very quick to pick up good aspects and methodologies, research approaches from different disciplines. So, the quintessential example is how randomized clinical trials were remodeled as randomized control trials. The incorporation of natural experiments in development empirical economics. So, this sort of dynamism that the study of economics as a discipline brings is one of the main things that attracts me to study economics. And I think that's where my interest stemmed from. And I'm really enjoying my studies here so far. It's very different from what I studied in India. The approaches are different, the pedagogy is different. And my appetite for knowledge has increased a lot. So I think...
Well, you are not online. That's a big difference.
Yes, of course. And interaction with peers and all of so many things change. And so I think, that's what I've liked about studying economics here so far. And that's where I'm at.
So have you in the summer, did you have any work experience summer?
Yes, I did. So U Chicago has a summer session where early, like, students who are freshmen, or even a few high school students who are trying to get some, like, a head start on their college education, can take classes on campus. So I worked as a teaching assistant, sort of. It's called a course assistant, actually, because you do a little bit of teaching assistant work, and you also do some discussion sessions, or like more of a sort of junior lectureship kind of work. So I did some of that work for the first few months, where I was the course assistant for a class on computational methods in social sciences using R programming. And I was also the course assistant for a class that taught introductory microeconomics. So I did that for a bit, and then I'm currently working as a research assistant for a few professors here who are trying to understand the incidence of a few sociological phenomenon in the city of Chicago. So they're mostly sociologists, but their research is quite empirical, and they're trying to do some economic modeling, which is what I'm helping them out with.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
It gives you some money too, right?
It does. It's quite helpful because student debt is real. And if I can get a head start on that, that's helpful.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And you have some topics you want to talk about?
Yes, I do. I
Let's
think,
talk. Yeah.
yes, so I think the first thing I wanted to talk about was when you first get exposed to studying economics, particularly as someone like me who went to a great school in urban India and was privileged enough to get high quality education early on, is you form a very, I would say, a romantic picture of what economics as a discipline, right? You feel like you can solve the world problems and you can get answers to pressing questions and you can help the world get better, through your study, through your scholarship, through your research in economics. But a lot of times when we come from such positions of privilege, we also need to understand that really connecting with ground reality as students, as early economists or budding economists is equally important. So I was also lucky enough to be able to have done some field work during my time at Delhi University. I contributed in doing some surveys and gathering data from the field and things like that. So it's important to stay in touch with the entire life cycle of research, of policy, how academia and the real world interact. Otherwise it's easy to lose touch. You get wrapped, you get completely I would say bogged down with how robust your model is or how sophisticated your methods are, that you sometimes end up losing touch with reality and how it's going to really look like in the real world, outside of what it's like on paper. So I think that's one thing that
But you had 2 years of online, so you couldn't have done the field work that time.
Not during the pandemic, but before. So in
Yeah.
my first year, I was helping out with some field work. I had a professor who was running a study in Malviya Nagar in New Delhi, where they were
Yeah.
interviewing two people. So some exposure taught me that early on. So I
Yeah.
think that's
Yeah.
something I
Yeah.
like to
Okay.
share.
Yeah.
So that was one thing that I wanted to talk about today. And
Yeah.
I felt like my bubble was burst,
Yeah.
my so I feel that was something I should share as a
Yeah.
personal
Yeah.
experience. And then it also teaches you how to ask relevant questions, right?
Yeah.
You might think that, oh, this is something very interesting, this is a very interesting research idea, I'm trying to fill a gap in research or something like that. But experiences like this and putting yourself out there, and really being thorough with the methods that you're trying to work on, is what helps you come up with good questions that
Mm-hmm.
that are feasible and also interesting to you. And finding that balance is important as an early researcher or uh, learner of economics. So
Yeah.
that was one thing that I found like a landmark takeaway from my own journey. And
Did you remember any questions that you found particularly illuminating? I mean, you said question formulation.
right.
So is there some example of one or two questions that you still remember, or it's gone?
Yes, of
Okay,
course.
so let's have that example.
So one of the, I mean, this was during the pandemic, where one of my professors at the University of Delhi was trying to work on the impact of the gig economy.
Yeah.
So how how the pandemic sort of spurred that pick up as well, where the front line was essentially all gig workers.
Yeah.
uh, the Zomato and Swiggy and even
Yeah.
delivery of medicines and all the essential services.
Mm-hmm.
So uh, the idea was to understand how latent is the power of the gig economy, because
Yeah.
it's not formalized, the sector does not have a lot of regulations and benefits that are robustly in place for the workers. But at the same time, it is something that is sort of was also the sort of the backbone of the pandemic economy. So
Right.
I think that was a very timely investigation that the professor initiated. And they were trying to create a setup to make sure that they had the appropriate data, they were interviewing people to try and understand how to study this more. So I think in terms of time and context, that was a great research question, and it was well thought out, because things like these could have in the long run, it would have been okay to normalize the exploitation of gig workers or not having them have proper rights, labor rights. So, but research like that was important to make sure that timely intervention was
Right. Okay.
made for them. So I think that's one thing that comes to the top of my mind. But actually, I would like to take this opportunity to transition into something else that I wanted to talk about, which
All right.
was
Sure.
which was also like the more like once I came here at the University of Chicago, and because my degree is sort of computational in bent as well, there is a lot of up and coming methods that are technical in nature, things like causal inference or using machine learning algorithms for economic research that are coming in. And again, the dynamism of economics as a discipline, it takes up whatever can be applied and whatever economists can use. So
By the way, some people call it expansionist.
yes,
Not dynamic,
I
but
can see.
expansionist, in a pejorative, negative sense.
Yeah, I think there's two sides to the coin, but
Okay.
I feel like there can be good that can come out of it, because
Okay,
there's
fine.
always
Let's continue with this.
yes. So
Okay.
so one of the interesting research questions then that came to light recently to me was the fact that the United States federal government has a lot of regulations and rules, and they are all collected for all the different departments and entities that come under the government. And a few researchers are trying to come up with some optical character recognition and machine learning natural language processing models to be able to scan, read, interpret, and store all of those regulations in one place, because
Yeah.
it's so many hundreds of thousands of pages that it's
Yeah,
not
it is.
possible for one person to read them or even
Yeah,
compile them.
impossible.
So having the power of machines to be able to do that for you, maybe just to reduce the redundancy of regulations or enhance, if there's something like repeating or duplicating, to club things together and just to make regulations more efficient. So
Mhm.
I think that's very interesting, and it's an interesting research question. It's an interesting way of incorporating interdisciplinary methods into the study of economics, which
Mhm.
I think that students everywhere who are just starting out, they should try and keep abreast of such
Mhm.
innovations. Because if you're trying to work on your own thesis or your own term paper or a paper for a class, even a literature review of something that's encouraging method like this might be interesting for you, and might be interesting for you to share with your class, because you never know what it might spur in someone else's mind, what further ideas it can lead to, and
Right.
how the ball keeps rolling then.
Yeah.
So I think that was another thing that I wanted to touch upon, as to how keeping abreast of um, new methods and techniques that are coming in, and just trying to be curious is also something that I
Yeah,
think
sure. Yeah.
comes with studying economics and trying to be a new economist. So yeah, and I think it's not only about being fancy and using sophisticated techniques. It all does come down to what a lot of social scientists call action oriented research.
Yeah.
So you have to keep the balance strong there. Yes.
And what else?
I think just I think I probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to understand this whole spectrum or see the bird eye view as well as like the worm eye view equally well if I wouldn't have pushed myself out of the comfort zone after completing my undergraduate studies.
Okay. All
So
right.
I think that whatever you feel is the way to go, you should always think of something one step more than that. Like I thought at the time when I was in my final year, I thought I should probably pursue a master's in India and continue studying economics. And my parents encouraged me to also consider options abroad. And I mean, I was a bit no, I was a bit hesitant because of the financial incidents, and I mean, I didn't know if I would be able to secure admission in a good university or make the shift or the transition smoothly.
Mhm.
But I decided to take the risks that come with it. I decided to, keep myself accountable. I decided to go ahead with the plan and give my all to it. And by God's grace, I was able to, get an opportunity that I probably wouldn't have thought of in my first or second year of college at all.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I
It's a
think,
great opportunity, no question about it.
right,
And
right.
what's the future?
After the program,
Whatever. It's your
so
future, not mine.
I mean, I'm not someone, I mean, I'm quite short-sighted, if I might say.
All right.
So for me, I think when I was entering into my master's program, I was hell bent on doing a PhD at some point,
Yeah.
because I wanted to continue in economic research and I wanted to write papers and be an
Mm-hmm.
academic and all those things. But the more I studied here in the past year, the more I feel like it's that saying, right? The more you start to know things, the more you realize you don't know them at all.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm just scratching the surface now,
Yeah.
and I want to spend some more time maybe working in research roles as a full-time research assistant or a pre-doctoral researcher for 1 or 2 years after the program before continuing on for further education or trying to transition into other research-based roles. But
Mm-hmm.
that's what I've been thinking so far. So yeah,
So
yeah.
it's more studies, right? That's what you are thinking of. It's academic kind of work, right?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I think I've enjoyed what I've learned so far, and
Uh-huh.
I feel like that's something that nourishes me
Okay.
and my brain.
All
So
right.
I think I would like to continue doing that. But yes,
And the difference in the teaching methods,
uh,
how do you find that?
it's quite vast.
Uh-huh.
I think there's a lot of emphasis. I can't say for other universities, but here at the University of Chicago, there's a lot of emphasis on figuring things out for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So the lecture might just teach you the tip of the iceberg,
Yeah.
but the assignment that's due the next week will have you sit down and
Uh,
break down everything that
uh,
you've been taught really down to the bone.
yeah.
You search and look and ask, and
Yeah.
to office hours for the professor, go to
Yeah.
office hours for the TA, ask your peers,
Yeah.
and you'll be grasping and you'll be just trying to make sense of things in your head. But when you look back at how much you covered during a quarter, or how many assignments you ended up doing on your own account in a span of weeks, it feels rewarding, in the moment. And also because U Chicago runs on a quarter system, so it's
Yeah.
notorious for being very fast paced. But
Yeah.
when you look back on how much you covered, you feel agency in your learning, because you feel like you were the one who figured everything out. Nothing came to you easy, I guess, and that's a good feeling to have, after some time, because you feel like you really worked hard for it, and then you got it and it clicks. Things make sense, concepts are clear, arguments are flowing in a line of thought, and it feels good. It's a rewarding academic journey for sure. But
Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I mean, you came prepared enough to make the transition, right?
I mean, I was prepared to the extent where I remember in the orientation program that the Department of Economics did for us. They said that U Chicago is the school where people say, fun goes to die here. So, so you better be prepared
Uh,
to give it your all. You better
uh,
be prepared to be resilient, because
uh,
things will be hard. You won't know things.
uh,
There'll be curveballs,
uh,
and you just have to keep afloat. So
uh,
they were pretty clear about it up front. They were
yeah,
like, listen, if you can take this, come here. If
yeah,
not, then I don't know. So they were pretty clear about it up front. So, I
yeah,
mean, mentally I was prepared, but of course, the transition, I mean, there's culture shock, and there's also having to be completely and absolutely independent, which you haven't been, like I hadn't been at all. I mean, I was
yeah,
living with my parents until I moved out. So I
yeah,
was in a very comforting cocoon, protected. But,
yeah.
getting out there and but now that I look back after a year, I mean,
Mm,
it has been a transformative experience for me,
mm,
which is why I encourage people to always, if you think you can do X, always aim for 2X,
mm,
because you
mm.
might be able to, do something that you never thought or imagined you would that way.
Okay. All
So
right.
I think, yeah, that's my takeaway as well.
Well, you're obviously enjoying it. The look on your face shows that you are enjoying the pushing and the prodding, and that it's having good effects on your learning and your feeling of confidence, etc. So it's a welcome thought that you have made the transition and are a different. You've grown some in some ways, right? I mean, you have to manage your own food, clothing, everything. There's nobody to look after you here, right? It's
Definitely.
you're on your own. Okay. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think I want to end with, things like this. I mean, this is a great initiative. I think everyone should voice. I think social media is, I mean, the sort of platform that people like me and other young students should use, because probably a hurdle that you're facing, a programming language you can't learn, or a particular paper that you think is really hard for you to understand, you just if you voice that concern, or if you just share about it on the internet, I'm pretty sure there'll be loads of people in the same boat as you. And I
Yeah.
think you use that as a great medium, as a common platform to for shared learning. And I think this is something that's exciting, and I think I want to continue doing that in my own personal capacity as well. But and I just want to thank with the opportunity to be able to speak
Okay.
about.
Well, maybe we'll be back to you in 1 year to see where you are after your second year, see what your future
Absolutely.
looks like, what your job prospects and so on.
That
See
would be.
what you have to say once you have completed the degree, right? You will complete the degree in 1 year.
I will, yes.
So we'll talk to you at that time, see where you are. So let's
That
say bye for the moment. Okay. Bye, everybody. It was great to have Bhavya with us. I'll be back with another young person or an expert soon. Till then, bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.